The diplomatic vessel Phoenix Dawn drifted silently through the void between Earth and Mars when the transmission arrived. Captain Jake Morrison was reviewing supply reports in his quarters when the emergency alert pierced the ship's quiet hum. He moved quickly to the bridge where his communications officer Lisa Carter was already working at her station with trembling hands. "Captain, we're receiving a priority signal on all frequencies," Carter said without looking up from her console. "It's not coming from Earth or any human colony. The origin point is moving toward us from the outer system." Morrison settled into his command chair and studied the tactical display. 3 massive ships appeared on the screen, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. Their design was alien, with sweeping curves and crystalline structures that seemed to bend light around them. Behind these giants, dozens of smaller vessels formed a perfect formation that stretched across millions of kilometers of space. "Put it through," Morrison ordered. The main screen flickered and filled with an image that made everyone on the bridge step backward. The creature that appeared before them stood nearly 3 meters tall, with scaled skin that shifted between green and gold. Its eyes were vertical slits that seemed to look directly at each crew member simultaneously. When it spoke, the words came through a translation device that made its voice sound mechanical and cold. "I am Ambassador Crex 5 of the Zephyrian Empire, speaking for the Galactic Confederation. We address the species known as humans with an official declaration that cannot be ignored or delayed." Morrison gestured for Carter to begin recording everything. The alien continued without waiting for any response from the human ship. "Your species has existed in galactic space for 400 years since first contact was established. In this short time, you have developed military technologies that pose a significant threat to the established order of civilized worlds. Your fusion torpedo systems can destroy entire fleets. Your quantum disruption fields can tear holes in space itself. Your adaptive artificial intelligence systems learn and evolve beyond the control of their creators." The ambassador paused, and its scaled features seemed to darken with what might have been anger or fear. 13 species of the Galactic Confederation have observed your rapid advancement with growing concern. We have reached a unanimous decision regarding the human threat to galactic peace and stability. Morrison felt his stomach tighten as he realized where this conversation was heading. Around the bridge, his crew members exchanged worried glances while maintaining their posts. "The Galactic Confederation hereby demands the immediate disarmament of all human military forces beyond basic planetary defense systems. You will surrender all deep space combat vessels to Confederation custody within 6 months. You will cease production of all advanced weapons technologies. You will submit to ongoing inspection and oversight by Confederation observers to ensure compliance with these requirements." The alien's vertical pupils contracted as it leaned closer to whatever device was transmitting its image. "These terms are not negotiable. They represent the collective will of species far older and more established than your own. Compliance will ensure humanity's continued existence as a member of the galactic community. Refusal will result in appropriate action to neutralize the threat you represent." Carter's hands flew over her console as she tried to establish a communication link, but the alien continued speaking before she could succeed. "We understand the gravity of what we demand, but your species has left us no choice. In the past century alone, you have increased your military capabilities by 3,000%. No other species in recorded galactic history has ever developed destructive potential at such a rapid pace. The mathematics of your advancement suggest that within another century, humanity could challenge the combined might of the entire Confederation." Morrison stood from his chair and stepped toward the screen, though he knew the communication was one way. "This is not punishment, but necessity. Many species among the Confederation argued for immediate preemptive action to eliminate the human threat entirely. Others suggested containment within your current solar system. The compromise we offer represents mercy and wisdom combined. The ambassador's image flickered as if the transmission was beginning to weaken over the vast distance. Your species will have exactly 72 hours to provide an official response to these demands. The response must come from your highest governmental authority and must indicate complete acceptance of all terms without modification or delay. Any attempt to negotiate or request changes will be interpreted as refusal. Morrison noticed that more alien ships were appearing on them. Tactical display, spreading out in a formation that surrounded the entire inner solar system. If no response is received within the specified time period, or if the response indicates anything other than full compliance, we will begin implementation of alternative solutions to the human problem. These alternatives will not require your cooperation or consent. The alien's scaled hand moved towards something outside the transmission range, and Morrison realized the communication was about to end. Understand that this decision was not made lightly or quickly. For 50 years, the Confederation has monitored your technological development and hoped that human advancement would slow to normal galactic standards. Instead, your progress has accelerated beyond all reasonable projections. We can no longer ignore the mathematical certainty that unchecked human development will eventually threaten every other sentient species in the whole galaxy. Carter managed to activate the response channel, but the alien continued without acknowledging the attempt. We do not hate your species or wish for your destruction. We simply cannot allow any single civilization to achieve the level of military dominance that your current trajectory guarantees. History has shown us that power without restraint inevitably leads to conquest and oppression. We will not permit humanity to become what every other species fears most. The transmission began to fade, but the ambassador's final words came through clearly. 72 hours beginning now. Choose wisely, humans. Your survival depends entirely on your willingness to accept limitations that will ensure the safety of all. The screen went dark, leaving the bridge of Phoenix Dawn in stunned silence. Morrison stared at the blank display for several seconds before turning to his crew. Carter, get me a priority channel to Earth immediately. Full encryption and maximum transmission power. Yes, sir. Connection established. This is Captain Morrison of Phoenix Dawn, requesting immediate communication with President Davis and the Global Defense Council. Priority Alpha, emergency status. We have received a formal ultimatum from an alien coalition calling itself the Galactic Confederation. The response from Earth came back within minutes, and Morrison could hear the tension in the voice of Admiral Roy Patterson, who served as the President's military advisor. Phoenix Dawn, this is Admiral Patterson. We've been monitoring unusual ship movements in the outer system for the past 6 hours. Please transmit all data immediately. Morrison nodded to Carter, who began uploading everything they had recorded. As the data flowed toward Earth, Morrison studied the tactical display where alien ships continued to arrive and take positions throughout human space. Admiral, they've given us exactly 72 hours to surrender our entire deep space fleet and submit to their oversight. The alternative appears to be war against 13 different alien species. The silence from Earth stretched for nearly a minute before Patterson's voice returned. Captain, you are ordered to return to Earth at maximum speed. Do not attempt any communication with the alien forces. President Davis is convening an emergency session of the Global Defense Council. We need you here in 18 hours. Morrison looked around his bridge one more time before giving the order that would begin humanity's race against an impossible deadline. All hands, prepare for emergency acceleration to Earth. We're going home to help decide the fate of our entire species. The Global Defense Council chamber buzzed with urgent conversations as world leaders and military commanders gathered around the massive circular table in Geneva. President Helen Davis sat at the head position, her face grave as she reviewed the transmission data from Phoenix Dawn for the third time. Beside her, Admiral Roy Patterson studied tactical projections that painted an increasingly dark picture of humanity's chances in a direct confrontation. Dr. Alex Turner entered the chamber carrying a sealed briefcase that drew curious glances from several council members. As head of the Advanced Weapons Research Division, Turner rarely appeared at political meetings, preferring to work in the underground laboratories beneath the Swiss mountains. Today was different, and everyone in the room could sense the weight of whatever information he carried. Ladies and gentlemen, we have 18 hours before Captain Morrison arrives with Phoenix Dawn, President Davis announced as the room fell silent. By that time, we need preliminary decisions on how humanity will respond to this ultimatum. Admiral Patterson, please brief the Council on our current military position. Patterson activated the holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. Three-dimensional representations of human space appeared, showing the locations of every military installation and combat vessel under Earth's command. The numbers were impressive by human standards, but looked small when compared to the alien fleet positions that surrounded them. Our total force consists of 2,400 combat vessels across all classes, Patterson began. This includes everything from planetary defense cruisers to our largest dreadnought-class ships. We have military installations on 47 worlds and asteroid stations, plus the main shipyards at Luna, Mars, and Europa. General Patricia Stone, Director of Strategic Operations, stood to add her analysis. Intelligence reports indicate the Confederation has positioned over 30,000 ships in formations around our territory. The smallest of their vessels appears to be roughly equivalent to our heavy cruisers, while their largest ships are beyond anything we've ever designed. Murmurs of concern rippled through the chamber as the scale of the threat became clear. Colony Governor Ben Wright, representing the Mars settlements, leaned forward in his chair. "Are we seriously considering surrender without even attempting to fight?" Wright demanded. "My people didn't spend generations building civilization on Mars just to hand it over to alien overseers." "No one is talking about surrender yet," President Davis replied calmly. "But we need to understand all our options before making any decisions. That could lead to human extinction." Dr. Turner finally opened his briefcase and withdrew a datapad that he connected to the chamber's main system. "Before this council makes any choice about humanity's future, there's classified information you need to know about. What I'm about to share has been kept secret for 15 years under the highest security protocols." The holographic display changed to show a different view of human space, one that revealed installations and projects that didn't appear on any official records. Hidden bases, research facilities, and construction sites appeared throughout the solar system and beyond. Project Silence began in 2372, 1 year after our first major diplomatic contact with the Galactic Confederation, Turner explained. Military leadership recognized that this exact scenario would eventually occur. A species that advances as rapidly as humanity would inevitably be seen as a threat by older, more established civilizations. Admiral Patterson nodded grimly. The project was designed from the beginning as our answer to overwhelming odds. Not a weapon system, but something far more sophisticated. Turner manipulated the display to show the hidden installations in greater detail. For 15 years, our best scientists and engineers have been developing technology that could allow human civilization to continue existing even if faced with impossible military disadvantages. Dr. Rachel Stone, the President's science advisor and Patricia's younger sister, studied the data with growing amazement. "Alex, some of these energy readings are off the charts. What exactly have you been building out there?" "Quantum field generators," Turner replied simply. "Devices capable of creating localized distortions in spacetime itself. We've been testing them on small scales for years, but the network is finally ready for full implementation. The room fell completely silent as the implications began to sink in. President Davis leaned forward, her voice barely above a whisper. Are you telling us that we have the capability to hide our entire civilization from alien detection? More than that, Turner said. We can phase human space into a parallel dimensional pocket that exists alongside normal spacetime, but remains completely invisible and inaccessible to outside forces. Ships, planets, entire star systems can be moved into quantum shadows where they continue to function normally while appearing to simply vanish from the universe. Governor Wright's eyes widened. You're talking about making humanity disappear entirely. Temporarily, General Stone clarified. The technology allows us to exist in a state where we can observe and interact with normal space while remaining completely undetectable. Think of it as the ultimate defensive measure. Admiral Patterson activated another section of the display. The network consists of 347 quantum field generators positioned throughout human territory. Each one is powered by its own fusion reactor and can operate independently for decades. When activated simultaneously, they create an overlapping field effect that encompasses all of human civilization. President Davis stood and walked around the table, studying the technical specifications that filled the air above them. What are the risks of using this technology? Unknown long-term effects on human biology from extended exposure to quantum fields, Turner admitted. Possible difficulty returning to normal spacetime if the generators are damaged. And of course, we've never tested the system on this scale before. Dr. Rachel Stone pulled up additional data on her personal tablet. The power requirements alone are staggering. You're talking about energy consumption that equals the entire output of Earth's solar collectors. The generators are designed to draw power directly from space-time distortions, Turner explained. They actually become more efficient the longer they operate, feeding on the quantum fluctuations they create. The chamber erupted in discussions as council members debated among themselves. Some voices called for immediate activation of Project Silence, while others demanded more conventional military responses. President Davis raised her hand for silence. We still have over 50 hours before the alien deadline expires. I want detailed analyses of every possible response option, including full activation of Project Silence. General Stone, I'm placing you in direct command of the project's implementation team. Patricia Stone nodded. Understood, Madam President. If we decide to proceed, the activation sequence will take approximately 12 hours to complete. And what exactly would the aliens see when we disappear? Governor Wright asked. Turner smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. Nothing. Empty space where human civilization used to exist. Our ships would vanish from their sensors. Our planets would appear uninhabited. Our communications would go completely silent. From their perspective, humanity would simply cease to exist. President Davis returned to her seat and looked around the table at the faces of those who would help decide humanity's fate. The question becomes whether we're willing to bet our entire species on untested technology, or whether we should seek some form of compromise with the Confederation. There is no compromise, Admiral Patterson said firmly. They made that clear in their transmission. Complete disarmament or war. Those are our only choices. Dr. Rachel Stone raised another concern. If we activate Project Silence and it works, how long do we stay hidden? We can't remain in quantum shadows forever. Long enough to develop technology that makes the Confederation's ultimatum irrelevant, Turner replied. Long enough to become something they never expected humanity could become. President Davis closed her eyes and considered the weight of the decision ahead. In less than 3 days, she would have to choose between surrender, conventional war, against impossible odds, or trusting humanity's survival to the most ambitious scientific project in human history. We'll reconvene when Captain Morrison arrives with any additional intelligence from Phoenix Dawn. Until then, I want every option fully analyzed and ready for immediate implementation." As the council members began to file out of the chamber, President Davis remained seated, staring at the holographic display that showed humanity's hidden preparations for the impossible choice they now faced. The 72-hour deadline passed without a single word from humanity. Every human vessel, colony, and installation maintained absolute radio silence as the alien fleet waited for Earth's response. Ambassador Krex 5 stood aboard his flagship, monitoring the communication channels that remained empty except for the constant hum of cosmic background radiation. Captain Allen Price commanded the research vessel Horizon Explorer at the very edge of Confederation space, 3 light years from Earth. Her crew of xenobiologists and deep space surveyors continued their mapping mission as if nothing had changed, ignoring the increasingly hostile alien transmissions that demanded they return to human territory immediately. "Captain, we're receiving another direct communication from the Zephyrian fleet," reported Communications Officer Danny Walsh from his station. "They're ordering us to cease all activities and return to Earth within 24 hours. Price studied the star charts on her main display, noting the positions of several alien patrol vessels that had been tracking her ship for the past week. "Continue standard operations, Danny. We have our orders from Earth Command, and those orders haven't changed." "But Captain, what if they try to force us back?" asked Science Officer Kim Rogers, looking up from her biological sample analysis. "Then we'll deal with that situation when it happens," Price replied calmly. "Right now, our job is to complete the survey of this sector, and that's exactly what we're going to do." Meanwhile, on Europa Station, Commander Gary Phillips oversaw the final preparations for Project Silence. A massive facility had been disguised as a routine research station for over a decade, but its true purpose was about to be revealed. Phillips watched as his engineering teams made last-minute adjustments to the quantum field generators that would soon change the nature of the conflict entirely. "Mary, initiate the preliminary field tests," Phillips ordered his communications. Expert Mary Johnson, who sat at a control station surrounded by displays showing energy readings from across human space. "Field generators 1 through 47 responding normally," Johnson reported. "Power levels at optimal ranges. Quantum resonance stable across all frequencies." Phillips nodded and activated his personal communicator. "Control, this is Europa. Base, we are ready to begin the activation sequence on your command." The response came back immediately from the hidden command center beneath the lunar surface. "Europa Base, hold current status. Activation will commence in exactly 6 hours. All personnel should prepare for extended isolation protocols." Dr. Alex Turner monitored the project's progress from aboard the secret command vessel Silent Dawn, hidden in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. The ship's advanced cloaking systems made it invisible to both human and alien sensors while serving as the coordination hub for Project Silence. "Turner to all station commanders," he transmitted. "On the encrypted quantum communication network. Final systems check in progress. Report status of all field generators in your sectors." Responses came back from hidden bases throughout human space. Mars Command reported all systems ready. The Luna facility confirmed optimal power levels. Asteroid mining stations that had been secretly converted to quantum research labs transmitted their readiness codes. Ambassador KREX5 grew, increasingly agitated as the human silence stretched into its second day. He had expected either immediate surrender or defiant threats of war, but this complete lack of response was something the Galactic Confederation had never encountered before. "Communications Officer, are you certain our transmissions are reaching human space?" Krex 5 demanded of his subordinate. "Yes, Ambassador. Our signals are being received and processed by human communication systems, but no responses are being generated or transmitted. Krex-5's scaled features darkened with frustration. Perhaps they are preparing some form of massive retaliation. Increase our surveillance of all human military installations. The alien surveillance ships reported increasingly strange phenomena as they observed human space. Ships appeared to flicker on their sensors, sometimes visible and sometimes not. Communications between human vessels seemed to fade in and out of detectability. Even Earth itself began showing unusual energy signatures that defied explanation. Captain Morrison had returned to Earth and delivered his full report to President Davis and the Global Defense Council. The decision had been made with unprecedented unanimity among world leaders. Humanity would not surrender, but neither would they engage in conventional warfare against impossible odds. Project Silence represents our best hope for survival, President Davis announced in a private meeting with her closest advisors. If we can demonstrate that humanity cannot be found or destroyed, the Confederation will eventually lose interest and seek threats elsewhere. Admiral Patterson expressed the concerns that many military leaders shared. Madam President, we're betting everything on technology that's never been tested on this scale. If it fails, we'll be completely vulnerable to alien retaliation. If we surrender, we'll be slaves, Davis replied firmly. If we fight conventionally, we'll be extinct. Project Silence gives us a third option that might allow humanity to survive and eventually thrive. Commander Phillips received the final activation order as the deadline approached. All stations, this is Europa Base. Commence Project Silence activation in 60 seconds. Mark. Across human space, quantum field generators began powering up simultaneously. On asteroid mining stations, disguised research facilities, and hidden military bases, the devices that would change humanity's fate hummed to life. Mary Johnson watched the energy readings climb toward critical levels. Commander, field generation approaching maximum output. Quantum distortion fields forming throughout the network. Understood, Mary. All personnel should prepare for dimensional transition effects. This might feel unusual. The activation began. Slowly, with subtle changes in the way light bent around human installations. Ships at the edge of the solar system started to flicker like mirages in desert heat. Planets with human colonies developed strange, atmospheric distortions that made them difficult to focus on through telescopes. Dr. Turner monitored the process from Silent Dawn, watching as readings from across human space indicated successful field generation. All stations were seeing stable quantum field formation. Dimensional phase shift beginning in 10 minutes. The alien fleet surrounding human space suddenly found their sensor readings becoming unreliable. Ships they had been tracking for days began to fade from their displays. Communication signals that had been constant for decades slowly diminished to nothing. Ambassador Krex-5 stared at his tactical display in growing confusion, as human installations appeared to simply dissolve from existence. "What are they doing?" he demanded of his science officer. "Unknown, Ambassador. Our sensors indicate massive energy discharges throughout human space, but the source and purpose of these discharges cannot be determined." Captain Price felt a strange tingling sensation as Horizon Explorer began its transition into quantum shadow space. The stars outside her viewports seemed to shift slightly, taking on colors that shouldn't exist in normal spacetime. "Danny, are you still receiving those alien communication attempts?" Price asked her communications officer. "No, Captain. All alien signals have stopped completely. It's like they can't see us anymore." Commander Phillips watched the final readings as Europa Station completed its phase transition. "Mary, confirm our status? Are we fully integrated into the quantum field network?" Johnson checked her instruments and smiled for the first time in months. "Confirmed, Commander. Europa Station has successfully transitioned to quantum shadow space." were completely invisible to normal space-time sensors while maintaining full operational capability. Dr. Turner broadcast the final status report to all human installations. Project Silence activation complete. All facilities have successfully transitioned to quantum shadow space. From this moment forward, humanity is officially invisible to the Galactic Confederation. In normal space-time, an alien fleet found itself patrolling empty star systems where thriving human colonies had existed just hours before. Earth appeared as a barren world with no signs of intelligent life. The massive human fleet that had been their primary concern had simply vanished without a trace. Ambassador Krex 5 stood alone on his bridge, staring at displays that showed nothing but empty space where humanity used to be. The species that had threatened galactic peace with their rapid advancement had apparently chosen to remove themselves from existence, rather than submit to Confederation authority. The silence that humanity had chosen as their answer was now complete, and the real test of Project Silence was about to begin. 3 months had passed since humanity vanished from normal space, and the Galactic Confederation found itself hunting ghosts across empty star systems. Their massive fleets patrolled sectors where human colonies once thrived, finding nothing but barren worlds and silent space stations that showed no signs of recent habitation. Lieutenant Colonel Kevin Brown commanded the stealth reconnaissance ship Ghostwalker from within quantum shadow space, observing the alien search patterns with growing satisfaction. His intelligence officer, Captain Susan Clark, monitored Confederation communications as their frustration mounted with each failed attempt to locate any trace of human presence. Kevin, you need to hear this latest transmission from the Zephyrian fleet, Clark said as she routed the alien communication through their translation systems. The mechanical voice of Ambassador Krex 5 filled the bridge of Ghostwalker, though the aliens had no idea they were being monitored by the very humans. They sought all Confederation vessels expand search parameters to include systems beyond the former human territory boundaries. These creatures may have fled to uncharted regions of space rather than face our superior forces. Brown smiled grimly as he watched alien patrol ships waste fuel and resources searching empty space. Susan, how many ships have they committed to hunting us? Current estimates put their search fleet at over 15,000 vessels, Clark replied. That's half their total force structure devoted to finding people who are standing right next to them. The psychological effects of humanity's disappearance were becoming increasingly apparent in Confederation communications. The Zephyrians demanded aggressive action against any world that might possibly harbor human refugees. Their reptilian nature made them suspicious and paranoid about threats they couldn't see or understand. The insectoid Clothy species took a more cautious approach, arguing that the humans had clearly demonstrated advanced technology beyond Confederation understanding. Their hive mind communications suggested growing respect for human capabilities and warnings against underestimating what appeared to be a vanished species. The aquatic delphines had withdrawn most of their ships from the search effort entirely, claiming that humanity had obviously fled the galaxy and no longer posed any threat to established civilizations. Their liquid-based biology made them more adaptable to changing circumstances than their alliance partners. Meanwhile, hidden within quantum shadow space, human civilization continued to function and grow stronger. Admiral Roy Patterson coordinated defense preparations from the concealed fortress of Sanctuary Base, a massive installation that existed in the space between dimensions. Patterson to all fleet commanders, the Admiral transmitted across the quantum communication network. Intelligence reports indicate increasing discord among Confederation species. Their alliance is showing significant stress fractures. Dr. Alex Turner worked around the clock in his expanded research facilities, developing new technologies that took advantage of the breathing room Project Silence had provided. The quantum field generators that hid humanity also opened up entirely. New areas of scientific exploration. Turner to command, he reported during his daily briefing. We've successfully developed phase shift, torpedo systems that can strike targets in normal space while fired from quantum shadow space. The enemy would never see the attack coming and could never trace it back to its source. Captain Jake Morrison now commanded the invisible dreadnought Defiant Spirit, leading covert operations against isolated Confederation vessels. These ships simply disappeared from alien sensor networks, adding to the growing paranoia that was spreading through their fleets. Morrison's tactical officer, Major Lisa Wong, had developed new strategies for fighting an enemy that vastly outnumbered them but couldn't find them. Captain, we've identified 17 more isolated patrol vessels operating alone in former human space. Each one represents an opportunity to reduce their search capabilities while increasing their fear. Approved, Lisa. Select the most isolated targets and prepare phase shift strike operations. Make sure each disappearance appears completely unexplainable to the remaining Confederation forces. The attacks began subtly, with single alien ships simply vanishing from their patrol routes. Search parties found no wreckage, no distress signals, and no evidence of what had happened to their missing vessels. The ships were there one moment and gone the next, as if they had never existed at all. Ambassador Krex-5 reviewed the growing list of missing ships with increasing agitation. His scaled features darkened as he studied reports that made no logical sense according to any known physics or military tactics. Science officer, explain to me how an entire heavy cruiser can disappear without any trace of weapons fire. Explosion or emergency transmission, Krex-5 demanded. I cannot, Ambassador. Our sensors detected no unusual energy signatures, no spatial distortions, and no signs of combat. The vessel was performing routine patrol duties and then simply ceased to exist. Similar conversations were taking place aboard Confederation command ships throughout former human space. The Claffey fleet commanders began transmitting warnings about supernatural forces that could reach across dimensions to claim their victims. Zephyrian captains demanded reinforcements and refused to operate their ships alone. Commander Gary Phillips monitored the psychological warfare effects from Europa Station, now permanently phased into quantum shadow space. His communications. Expert Mary Johnson tracked alien transmissions that revealed growing panic and superstition among Confederation crews. Commander, we're intercepting reports of what the aliens are calling ghost ship sightings, Johnson reported. Multiple Confederation vessels claim to have detected human ships on their sensors for brief moments before they vanish completely. Phillips nodded with satisfaction. That's exactly what we want them to think, Mary. Fear of the unknown is more powerful than fear of any visible enemy. The ghost ship sightings were actually glimpses of human vessels as they briefly shifted between quantum shadow space and normal space-time during combat operations. To alien sensors, these appearances looked like supernatural manifestations rather than advanced technology. Captain Ellen Price continued her deep space exploration mission aboard Horizon Explorer, now operating from quantum shadow space with complete freedom to study alien behaviors and technologies. Her xenobiology team observed Confederation species interactions that revealed critical weaknesses in their alliance structure. Captain, we're detecting significant communication disputes between Zephyrian and Clothy command vessels, reported Science Officer Kim Rogers. The Zephyrians want to begin orbital bombardment of potentially inhabited worlds, while the Clothy are arguing for immediate withdrawal from human space. Price studied the tactical implications of the growing discord among alien species. Kim, document everything we observe about their command structures and decision-making processes. This intelligence could be crucial if we ever need to engage them directly. Dr. Turner made a breakthrough that would change the nature of the conflict entirely. Working with quantum field technology, his team discovered how to weaponize the same dimensional phase shift effects that hid humanity from alien detection. Command, this is Turner with a priority scientific report. He transmitted to President Davis and the Global Defense Council. We've successfully tested a method for making entire enemy fleets experience their own version of dimensional displacement. The implications were staggering. If humanity could force Confederation ships into quantum shadow space without their knowledge or consent, the aliens would find themselves lost between dimensions with no way to return to normal spacetime. President Davis reviewed Turner's report with amazement and concern. The technology that had saved humanity from extinction could now be turned into the most devastating weapon ever conceived. Enemy fleets could be made to simply disappear from existence, trapped forever in dimensional spaces they couldn't understand or escape. Dr. Turner, what are the ethical implications of using this technology against the Confederation? Davis asked during a secure communication session. Madam President, we would essentially be doing to them what we chose to do to ourselves, except they wouldn't have the infrastructure to survive in quantum shadow space. Most of their ships and crews would be lost within days. The decision that had begun as a desperate attempt at survival was evolving into something far more significant. Humanity had not only escaped alien threats, but had gained the power to eliminate those threats entirely if necessary. Admiral Patterson prepared preliminary plans for what military strategists were calling the final option. If diplomacy failed and the Confederation refused to abandon their aggressive intentions toward humanity, the entire alien alliance could be removed from normal spacetime permanently. As the fourth month of silence began, Confederation leaders finally understood that they were not hunting a species that had fled in fear, but rather confronting a civilization that had transcended their understanding of warfare itself. 6 months after their ultimatum expired without response, the Galactic Confederation leadership gathered in emergency session aboard the massive command vessel Eternal Judgment. Ambassador Krex 5 stood before representatives of 13 species, his scaled features showing the strain of months spent hunting an enemy that had seemingly vanished from existence entirely. Fellow members of the Confederation, we must acknowledge that our mission to disarm humanity has failed completely. KREX-5 announced to the assembled delegates. We cannot disarm a species we cannot locate, and we cannot threaten a civilization that appears to have transcended physical reality itself. The Clothy representative, a towering insectoid creature with compound eyes that reflected the chamber's lights, spoke through its translation device. The humans have demonstrated capabilities beyond our understanding. Perhaps we should consider that our original assessment of their threat level was incorrect. Admiral Vex 9, the Zephyrian fleet commander, slammed his clawed hand against the conference table. They have made fools of us all. 30,000 ships searching empty space while our enemies laugh from whatever dimension they now inhabit. Unknown to the Confederation leadership, their emergency session was being monitored by Captain Jake Morrison from the Bridge of Defiant Spirit, still hidden in quantum shadow space, just a few kilometers from their command vessel. Morrison listened to their debates while preparing for what would soon become humanity's final answer to their demands. President Helen Davis had authorized the operation after months of careful consideration. The message that humanity would send would not come in words, but in a demonstration that would end the conflict permanently. Admiral Roy Patterson coordinated the largest military operation in human history from Sanctuary Base, bringing together every combat vessel in the human fleet. All fleet commanders, this is Admiral Patterson. Operation Final Answer begins in 60 minutes. Every human ship will simultaneously phase back into normal space at designated coordinates throughout former Confederation territory. Dr. Alex Turner monitored the quantum field generators from Silent Dawn as they prepared to reverse the process that had hidden humanity for half a year. The same technology that had made human civilization invisible could restore it to normal. Space-time with perfect precision and overwhelming impact. Turner to all stations. Begin quantum field reversal sequence. Phase transition will commence in exactly 1 hour and will be completed within 30 seconds across all human space. The reversal process began slowly, with subtle changes in the quantum field harmonics that had kept humanity hidden. On Europa Station, Commander Gary Phillips watched his instruments as the massive generators prepared to bring human civilization back into normal space. Mary, initiate the synchronized countdown. Phillips ordered communications expert Mary Johnson. Every human installation and vessel must reappear simultaneously for maximum psychological effect. Captain Ellen Price felt the familiar tingling sensation aboard Horizon Explorer as her ship prepared to transition back to normal spacetime. Her deep space exploration vessel would reappear at the edge of Confederation space, serving as the first visible sign that humanity had returned. All hands, prepare for dimensional phase transition, Price announced to her crew. In 30 minutes, the galaxy will discover that humanity never fled or surrendered. We simply chose to demonstrate what human ingenuity could accomplish when truly threatened. The Confederation emergency session continued with increasingly desperate discussions about their failed mission. Some species argued for immediate withdrawal from human space, while others demanded one final attempt to locate and destroy the vanished civilization. We must consider the possibility that the humans develop technology that allows them to exist in parallel dimensions. The Delphine representative suggested through its aquatic communication system. Our traditional concepts of warfare may be completely inadequate against such capabilities. Ambassador Krex 5 was about to respond when every sensor alarm on Eternal Judgment began sounding simultaneously. The bridge crew scrambled to their stations as impossible readings flooded their displays. Ambassador, we're detecting massive energy signatures throughout the sector, the Zephyrian sensor officer reported. Unknown vessels are appearing on our tactical displays. The first ships to reappear were the human exploration vessels, like Horizon Explorer, materializing at the edges of Confederation space, where they had been conducting peaceful research missions. Then the colony ships and civilian transports became visible around every human world, showing that the species had never abandoned their territory. Morrison smiled as Defiant Spirit phased back into normal space directly in front of the Confederation. Command vessel. Around him, the entire human battle fleet appeared in perfect formation, creating a wall of ships that stretched across 3 star systems. This is Captain Morrison of the human vessel Defiant Spirit addressing the Galactic Confederation. We have heard your demands and chosen to provide our response through demonstration rather than empty words. The tactical displays aboard Confederation ships showed an impossible sight. The human fleet that they had been trying to locate for 6 months had reappeared everywhere at once, surrounding alien forces with overwhelming numbers and precision. That defied all known military doctrine. Admiral Patterson's voice echoed across every communication channel as he spoke from the flagship Eternal Vigil. To the representatives of the Galactic Confederation, humanity acknowledges your concerns about our technological advancement. We have spent the past 6 months showing you exactly what human innovation can accomplish when our survival is threatened. Dr. Turner transmitted the technical specifications of Project Silence across all frequencies, revealing the scope of human achievements to the stunned alien leadership. The technology that made us invisible can just as easily make your fleets disappear permanently. We have demonstrated restraint by choosing concealment over aggression. President Davis delivered humanity's final response from aboard the command vessel that had served as the coordination center for Project Silence. Humanity will not disarm, will not submit, and will not be conquered. However, we also will not seek aggressive expansion or threaten peaceful species. The message was clear and undeniable. Humanity possessed the power to remove the entire Confederation from existence if they chose, but they were offering a peaceful resolution instead of demonstrating their full capabilities. We have shown you that we can vanish from your reality whenever we choose, Davis continued. We can exist in dimensions you cannot reach and strike from spaces you cannot see. The question now becomes whether you will continue to threaten a species that has proven itself beyond your ability to control. Ambassador Krex 5 stared at the human fleet surrounding his command vessel, understanding that everything had changed. In the past 30 seconds, the species they had tried to disarm had just demonstrated technological superiority that made their original ultimatum meaningless. On behalf of the Galactic Confederation, I request immediate ceasefire and withdrawal of all forces from human space. Krex 5 transmitted on open channels. We acknowledge that humanity has evolved beyond our previous assessments and no longer poses a conventional threat to galactic stability. The Confederation fleets began their hurried withdrawal within hours, leaving human space under a new understanding. Humanity had faced an impossible choice and found a third option that transformed them from potential victims into the galaxy's newest superpower. Commander, Phillips oversaw the deactivation of the quantum field generators as human space returned to normal visibility. Colonies reappeared, orbital installations came back online, and civilian life resumed as if the 6-month disappearance had been nothing more than a brief pause. Captain, Price received new orders to establish peaceful contact with species beyond. Confederation space, representing humanity's true nature as explorers and builders rather than conquerors. Her mission would show the galaxy that human advancement served peaceful purposes despite their overwhelming defensive capabilities. Children across Earth and the human colonies would grow up learning about the 6 months of silence when their entire species chose to disappear rather than surrender. They would understand that sometimes the most powerful response to impossible odds was to prove that you could not be made to vanish against your will, no matter how overwhelming the threat appeared to be.